Hello everyone. Today I want to share a story so unexpected and uplifting that it stopped people in their tracks and made them rethink what genuine compassion looks like in public life. It happened when Stephen Miller and Jasmine Crockett, two figures who could not be more different in background, personality, and political philosophy, visited a youth shelter together. What began as a routine outreach visit transformed into a heartfelt conversation that warmed the hearts of everyone who witnessed it, both inside the shelter and across the millions who later saw the moment online. The day began quietly. Staff at the youth shelter were preparing for what they expected to be a standard policy visit, one where officials observe, listen, and maybe offer a few formal remarks. But the moment Stephen Miller and Jasmine Crockett walked through the doors, something felt different. They didn't walk in as political rivals, nor did they carry the heavy tension people often expect when two strong voices share the same space. Instead, they walked in side by side, both genuinely curious, focused on the young people the shelter was built to protect. Anyone watching them enter would have sensed not confrontation, but intention, a shared commitment to understand. The shelter housed teenagers from difficult backgrounds, runaways, kids who had experienced violence, youth searching for a safe place after family breakdowns. These were young people who needed comfort, hope, and most importantly, adults who cared. And on that day they got exactly that. Stephen Miller, usually known for his stern public tone, walked slowly through the common area, listening more than he spoke. He asked the staff about daily struggles, about the lack of funding, about how the shelter handles the emotional needs of kids who have been through more in 15 years than many adults face in a lifetime. His voice stayed calm, measured, almost gentle. It surprised people. Some of the shelter workers admitted that they expected him to be detached or formal, but instead he appeared genuinely invested. Jasmine Crockett, on the other hand, brought her signature warmth. She greeted the teenagers with the kind of energy that immediately lowers walls. She sat down with them on worn-out couches, asked about their dreams, their favorite music, the things they wished adults understood about growing up in their world. She didn't talk to them like a politician. She talked to them like a big sister who cared deeply about their futures. One girl later said that she felt seen for the first time in months. As the two continued moving through the shelter, their differences blended into something unexpectedly powerful. They found themselves standing side by side in the art room, watching a 14-year-old boy paint a small mural. The boy explained how art helped him cope with the anger he never knew how to express. Miller nodded, asking quietly about his favorite colors and why he chose them. Crockett encouraged him to keep painting, telling him that expression is not weakness but strength. The shelter director stepped back and watched the scene unfold, later describing it as one of the most touching interactions she had seen in years. Here were two public figures from opposite ends of the political spectrum, united not by ideology, but by empathy. Eventually, Miller and Crockett sat down with a group of teens for a guided conversation. At first, the kids were shy after all. How often do they talk to leaders they've only seen in headlines? But the mood shifted quickly when Miller asked them what made the shelter feel like home. It was a simple question, but the kids appreciated that he asked it. One teen said the shelter gave him a second chance. Another said she felt safe there because she wasn't judged. Crockett leaned forward, giving each child her full attention, nodding with encouragement after every sentence. The conversation deepened when one teenager asked them why they came together. It wasn't a question either of them expected, but it opened the door to a moment of honesty. Crockett smiled first. She explained that sometimes people let their differences overshadow shared values, but when it comes to helping young people, collaboration should come before conflict. She said she came to the shelter because she believes the future depends on giving kids the support they deserve, no matter who they are or where they're from. Miller then spoke, surprising even the staff. He said that despite disagreements, there are issues too important for politics to divide. He acknowledged that young people facing hardship deserve leaders who show up, listen, and try to make things better. His tone wasn't rehearsed or defensive. It felt real. The kids listened with wide eyes. One young boy said quietly, "I wish adults talked like this more." The room shifted again, a deeper silence, but one filled with hope. Both Miller and Crockett heard it. They didn't respond with long speeches. They didn't lecture. They simply nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. The most emotional moment of the day happened during a tour of the dorm rooms. A 16-year-old girl shared her story with them. She had been in and out of shelters since she was 12. She talked about nights filled with fear, about hunger, about losing trust in adults. But then she said something neither of them expected. "I'm still fighting because I know someone out there cares. I just don't always know who." Jasmine Crockett reached out, holding the girl's hand gently, telling her that she mattered deeply, not just to the shelter, but to the world. Miller stood beside her, nodding, adding softly that she deserved stability and opportunity, and that leaders must ensure she gets both. For a moment, politics disappeared completely. What remained was raw humanity, two adults standing with a young girl who desperately needed hope. Later, in the shelter's meeting hall, Miller and Crockett sat together reflecting on everything they had witnessed. Instead of arguing policies, they talked about solutions, about resource gaps, about the emotional support shelters need. Their exchange wasn't formal, it was collaborative, honest, and free of ego. Crockett emphasized the need for mental health programs. Miller acknowledged the importance of stability and consistent funding. They agreed on far more than anyone expected. At one point, a shelter volunteer approached them and said, "Seeing you two talk like this, it gives us strength. It reminds us why we do what we do." Both Miller and Crockett smiled, humbled by the remark. Before leaving, they gathered the teens for one final message. Miller told them that no matter how tough life becomes, their worth is not defined by their circumstances. He said every one of them had potential waiting to be discovered. Crockett followed by reminding them that their voices matter, their stories matter, and their dreams are worth fighting for. She urged them to keep believing in themselves even when adults fall short. When they finally walked out of the shelter, the staff and volunteers felt uplifted. Some even admitted they were emotional witnessing such unity and compassion. Outside, reporters were waiting, eager to ask how the visit went and whether the two leaders clashed or found common ground. But instead of political soundbites, they got something far more meaningful. Miller spoke first, saying that visiting the shelter opened his eyes to the silent struggles so many young people face. Crockett added that the visit was a reminder that helping children should never be a partisan issue. They both emphasized that America's youth deserve consistent support, not just promises. The clip of their remarks spread online within hours. People were stunned not because they visited the shelter, but because of how genuine the visit seemed. Comments poured in from viewers who said they were moved, inspired, even emotional watching the two interact. Many said it was refreshing to see leaders demonstrate empathy instead of division. Some wrote that the warmth between Miller and Crockett at the shelter gave them hope that even across deep disagreements, people can still work together for the greater good. News outlets began replaying the moment when they spoke to the teens, highlighting the rare sincerity in their voices. Viewers were especially touched by the scene where both leaders comforted the 16-year-old girl. It became a symbol of what compassion looks like when stripped of politics. Days later, both Miller and Crockett referenced the visit publicly. Miller said he was committed to continuing discussions about youth support programs. Crockett called the experience one of the most emotionally meaningful days she had had in a long time. Despite being from opposite ends of the political world, both walked away, moved and changed. What made their visit unforgettable wasn't the cameras, the press, or the headlines. It was the humanity they showed, their willingness to listen, to comfort, and to stand beside young people who needed hope. The shelter director summed it up best: when leaders show compassion together, it sends a message louder than any speech. And that is the essence of this remarkable moment. A day when two unlikely figures walked into the same room, set aside differences, and showed what kindness looks like. A day when teenagers who had felt invisible finally felt seen. A day when empathy took center stage, warming hearts across the entire country.